National parks are one of the best travel experiences in the US. But let's be honest, they can start to feel expensive fast. Between the entrance fees, shuttle reservations, tours, and food, it adds up. But here's what most people don't realize. Some of the absolute best adventures in national parks are completely free. And sometimes, they're even better than the things you pay for. Hey, I'm Teresa from An Acre in the City. I've traveled to all 50 states and over 80% of the National Park Service sites. And over time, I've learned that most memorable moments usually aren't the ones that are on the brochure. So today, I'm sharing my favorite free activities or super cheap things to do in the national parks, including one of my favorite experiences that most people completely overlook. I'll share that in just a minute. First, let's talk about hiking and scenic views. This one might sound obvious, but I want you to think about it a little bit differently. Hiking and scenic viewpoints aren't just default activities in the national parks. They're the main event. Some of my favorite experiences in the parks have been free hikes and scenic overlooks, like Glacier Point in Yosemite. You drive up, you step out, and suddenly you're looking out over Half Dome and the entire valley. It's one of those views that just stops you for a second. Or the Trail of Cedars at Glacier, which feels completely different from the trails of the rest of the park. It's quiet, shaded, almost like stepping into another world. And then there's Congrès, that boardwalk loop. It feels like you're walking through a fairy tale swamp. Totally flat, super accessible, and one of the most unique landscapes I've ever seen. And don't overlook Scenic Drive. Going to the Sun Road in Glacier is one of the most beautiful drives in the country, even if, yes, the traffic can test your patience. But here's the shift. Instead of rushing to check things off your list, slow down and enjoy where you are. Because those moments, they're the ones you'll actually remember. And speaking of slowing down, the next one is something that most people skip. They really shouldn't. Ranger programs. Park rangers are one of the most underrated experiences of the entire national park experience. And their programs, usually completely free. You can join guided hikes, wilderness talks, wildlife talks, history programs, and night sky events, just to name a few. And here's the thing. They make the park come alive in ways that brochures and displays can't. I went to a ranger program once. We learned all about bats and how they use echolation to navigate and hunt. Did I expect to care about that? No, not really. Did I leave thinking it was one of the most coolest things ever? Yes, absolutely. And that's the magic of ranger programs. They turn a pretty place into a meaningful experience. But if you're someone who doesn't love group activities, don't worry. The next one gives you the same kind of experiences, but on your own terms. Take the scenic route. One of the easiest ways to experience national parks on a budget? Drive. And not just inside the parks. Some of the best scenic routes are absolutely free, like the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is actually a National Park Service site, and it doesn't cost anything to drive. Or the Outer Banks near Cape Hatteras, where the journey is the experience. Even the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. It feels quieter, less crowded, and is just as breathtaking. Unfortunately, we may have to wait a few years to go back there since the 2025 fires kind of ruined everything. And here's something I've learned. You don't always need the main attraction to have an incredible experience. Sometimes the side roads, the overlooks, and the unexpected stops end up being the highlight of the trip. And honestly, this is where a little planning makes a huge difference. Because when you know where these scenic routes and free experiences are ahead of time, you don't end up defaulting to the expensive options. That's exactly why I created my 5 days to the perfect outdoor adventure guide. It walks you through how to plan your trip step by step, including mapping your route, finding stops like these, and making sure you don't miss the simple things that end up being the best parts. If you want a trip that feels intentional instead of rushed, you can grab that below, because the goal isn't to spend more, it's to experience more. Now, if you like the idea of exploring at your own pace, this next one is going to be your favorite. DIY your own tour. I love a good tour, but I don't always love the schedule, the crowds, or the price tags. So I started making my own before a trip. I'll download park brochures, maps, and even use Google My Maps to map out the stops I want to hit. It turns your trip into a self-guided experience. You can go at your own pace, skip what doesn't interest you, stay longer at the places you love, and honestly, it makes you feel more connected to the park because you're exploring it more intentionally. Next, let's talk about one of the simplest and probably the best ways to save money at national parks. Bring your own food, because eating inside the parks, it adds up fast. But a picnic, it's cheaper, it's easier, and it's usually way better. Some of my favorite meals have been sitting on a rock, a log, or even the back of my car, munching on my food and enjoying that scenic overlook. And those moments, they feel more like the experience than any restaurant ever could. To wrap up, national parks don't need to be expensive to be incredible. With a little planning, you can hike, explore, learn, and experience so much without spending a dime. If you want help planning your next trip, that 5 days to your perfect outdoor adventure guide, it's linked below. And once you plan those free stops and scenic overlooks, you really want to be ready for whatever the trip throws at you. Check out the video on the screen for how to handle bad weather on a road trip, because even the best plans can change fast, and being prepared, it makes all the difference.